All right, let's talk about the research task format. Now, all the exams, audit, FAR, and reg, BEC doesn't, but the other three exams have at least one research question of the TBS DRS that you're going to receive. I've heard of a student getting two of them. My guess is one of them is probably pre-tested because at least one of the TBS DRS are pre-tested. But in any case, it's an area that most people don't have too much trouble with because in our everyday life, we do a Google search and so on. The other thing is once you get your notice to schedule, which could be good from anywhere from 3 to 12 months. Most states it's 6 months. California is 9 months, for example. Once you get that, then you get 6 months free access to the authoritative literature, which is at nasba.org, nasba.org. My suggestion is when you get your notice to schedule, go there, log on, sign up for it, and then as you're practicing questions, you can kind of use their actual research functionality. We do have it on the software as well. It's an area that I tell people don't worry about till like 2 weeks before the exam. Do a couple of samples, practice a little bit. But as I said, most people don't have too much trouble with it. It says here research task format. It's tested in its own independent task-based problem, at least one research per exam. Search through the database. You use the appropriate literature. At the top, there's usually a little on the TBS DRS. There's a little tab that you click. It says authoritative literature. A nice little trick, though, you can use that during the actual functionality of the TBS and DRS. So while you're working on those, that authoritative literature tab is there. You can look stuff up. You're trying to figure out certain things about inventory or valuation or anything like that. You can actually look it up, and I've had students do that as well. So you're doing a search, you type it in. Then there's a search within, so you can search within, and then you figure out what you're looking for, and then you put it into the solution. It'll alert you if the solution is correctly formatted. So it'll say your response is correctly formatted. So that's one of the nice things. It might say, you know, section 32, paragraph 03. If you put paragraph 3 but they wanted 03, then they will let you know that it was not correctly formatted. So that's kind of the nice things as far as going through that. Let's say, for example, I had a student mention they were doing, they had a question on an audit report, and so they went to the authoritative literature to research it, which helped them to answer the question that they were being asked. Now, of all the areas, auditing has the most choices. There are so many different authoritative literatures that they could be asking you about. In regulation, it's the IRC Internal Revenue Code. For financial accounting, it's the Accounting Standard Codifications. Here, there are many, many choices. You'll see here, we've got auditing standards, AUC, PCAOB standards, AT, attestation standards, AR, SSARS standards, ET, and so on. So I'll mention some of them. You don't have to memorize these. Some of them are much less frequently tested than others. But again, it's an area you don't have to memorize this. It's just kind of getting familiar with the research functionality. It starts out AUC, US, those are the clarified auditing standards for non-public entities, which we'll talk about throughout the course. We kind of alluded to them at the beginning of this section, but we'll talk more about them throughout. Based on SSAR statements on auditing standards, SASs, by the ASB, the Audit Standards Board. The sections of the clarified standards for non-public entities are AUC 200, 210, 220, and you'll see a list of this, a page after page after page. Now, if you go to the sample research question, you'll see, for example, how is it formatted, AUC 580.09, for example. So, and I put questions here you can practice with just to kind of, again, get familiar with the functionality. PCAOB, Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, PCAOB. Basically, the PCAOB, they have audit standards, AS as well. We will talk about these in detail in the professional responsibility section. So we're going to go through these because we're talking about, you know, independence, indirect and material, indirect financial interest, and so on. So we'll go through these in detail. You'll see they have general standards, general concepts, general attitudes, activities rather. I got an attitude. Then they're broken up into the standards, audit procedures. They have reporting standards as well. Matters relating to the filings under federal securities law, other matters, and so on. And then here's another example, PCAOB AS 2201, paragraph 9. That was an area that it used to be AS 1 through 18 or 19, and then they codified it and made the numbers change a little bit. AT, attestation engagements. We will talk about the attest function, the act of giving an opinion or conclusion, in another section. But that's attestation standards governed by SSAE, statements on standards for attestation engagements. You'll see how they're broken down, A, T, C, and again, the C is codified. AR, Statements on Standards for Accounting Review Services. So these are different types of services, reviews, compilations, preparation, engagements for financial statements. These are different services that we may perform for a non-public entity, ARC 60, 70, 80, and so on. There's a sample question. E.T., phone home, hello E.T. Remember that movie? I wasn't born yet, but I've seen it. E.T., that is the Code of Professional Conduct. We'll talk more about that in the future section about professional responsibilities. But E.T., and we'll go through the code has been codified, it says, as the preface, deals with all members, members in public practice, members in industry, and other matters as well. So this is kind of a breakdown. We'll go into the detail of that because they do ask questions, usually multiple choice, about the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct and also the for both public and non-public entities. So we're looking at the PCOB, the PCOB standards as well, which we will talk about in a future section. This stuff's not frequently tested. The bylaws, the valuation services, like let's say, for example, you're going to divorce, which is great because then you get a third, she gets a third, the attorney gets a third, and it's all wonderful. So valuation, where you have to go out and value the assets that you have, so that's a valuation service. Consulting services, PFP, personal financial planning services, CPE, continued professional education. That would be, for example, once you become a CPA and you pass this exam and it's behind you, you need 80 hours every 2 years of continuing education. In California, I need a minimum of 20 hours a year. So that's your those standards. Tax service standards, peer review standards, QC is quality control, which we will talk about in detail. You'll also see kind of an overview chart, and again, it has a whole list of them just so you can kind of see them together. So you can, again, start out by saying, okay, here's the question, let me type that in, look for it, let me search within to find what section and paragraph they're actually talking about. So again, it's usually an area that doesn't give students a lot of trouble. Just a couple of weeks before, maybe sign up for your access, which, as I said, you get for about 6 months. Once you have your notice to schedule, you can do that. You get 6 months of free access as well. So again, on the exam, of the different DRS, TBS type questions, at least one will be research for audit, FAR, and reg. And this is, again, a quick approach on how to look at it. Don't worry too much about this. I wanted to cover at the beginning of the course, but don't worry too much about it until the end as you start to kind of wind down and get ready for the big quiz, as my friend calls it. He says the big quiz. Anyway, all right, now it's time to start doing some homework. Study hard. See you soon.